Welcome to Eating Smart for Your Heart. This is a six-part series focused on improving your diet for cardiovascular health. Today we'll discuss calories and how you energize your body, as well as the best sources for carbohydrates and proteins. There's an age-old saying, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. What we put into our bodies over the years matters, and over time, that food can cause, prevent, or even reverse chronic disease. The good news is that research shows it's never too late to improve our diet and reap the benefits of those food choices. The word diet is based on the Greek word diete, which means way of life. So when we say diet, it truly means what we eat on a day-to-day basis. The typical American diet can be very nutrient poor. This table shows the most significant calorie contributors based on the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. As you work through the Eating Smart for Your Heart series, we hope to support you in making the shift to more nutrient-dense foods. When you look at each line item here, the most significant contributors to calories in America can be deemed nutrient poor. Burgers, desserts, sugar-sweetened beverages, enriched grains, pizza, alcoholic beverages. It's not to say that we can never ever have these foods. The question is, how often are you eating nutrient-dense food choices compared to food choices that are nutrient poor? Calories are the most basic form of energy that fuels our body, and calories do matter, but it's also important to consider the food and beverage quality, and this is where nutrient density comes in. But when we break it down to just this energy information, we have calories in and calories out. Calories in are the food and caloric beverages that we consume. Calories out can be variable, and they'll be unique from person to person. Calories out will be based on our daily energy needs, which shifts according to our body makeup, our sex, our age, our height, and our weight. Calories out will also be impacted by how much exercise we do or how active we are throughout the day, and it can also be impacted by stress and sleep. So when we think about calorie contributors or sources of calories in the diet, we have carbohydrates and protein. These provide 4 calories per gram. Fats will provide 9 calories per gram, so over double the energy density for each gram of fat. And then we have alcohol, which also contributes calories at about 7 calories per gram. Let's review the most nutrient-dense sources and the reason we want to eat carbohydrates. Many times, all carbohydrates are demonized, but the quality of carbohydrate as well as the dose and what it's paired with truly matters when we consider its impact on our health. We have refined carbohydrates versus whole quality carbohydrates. Refined carbs is going to be items made with that white flour, white bread, processed, crackers, muffins, bagels, where it's low in fiber, typically a little higher in calories, and often comes with added sugar. Right? This version of refined carbohydrates fuels our body with that energy, but it's kind of lacking on the nutrition and the fiber that's going to really help our heart health. Whole quality carbohydrates, and we will review plenty of choices today, are typically single ingredient foods. They are oftentimes plant-based with lots of fiber and other vitamins and minerals that are balancing, what that energy that we're getting from the carbohydrates. So we have plant sources and dairy sources of carbohydrate. Fruit, starchy vegetables, whole grains, and beans all provide carbohydrate and are broken down into glucose in our bloodstream. That dairy sugar or lactose found in milk is also a carbohydrate. We want to aim for about 40 to 60% of our total calories for the day to be from carbohydrates. And we'll be showing you some plate balancing methods to hit this window. Our body needs carbohydrates. The primary role of carbs in the diet is to provide the body with energy. If you've ever not eaten for a number of hours, felt a little shaky, a little tired, maybe some weak muscles, this is a direct result of not fueling our body. When we eat carbs, they are broken down into glucose in the bloodstream, which is then converted to something called ATP, which is what our cells use for energy. This energy can be used immediately or it's stored for later. Carbs are the preferred fuel for our brain and our nervous system, and it helps preserve our muscle. And this is something that people that are just blindly cutting carbohydrates oftentimes don't realize. When we cut carbohydrates, our body has to be energized in another way. If we're not fueling it, our body, it will break down muscle in order to get that energy it needs. So we want to make sure we hit our carbohydrate needs for the day through quality whole food choices. These carbohydrate-rich foods are almost exclusively from plants, and it's important to remember that milk is the only animal-derived food that contains any significant carbohydrate. So some quality carbohydrate sources are the starches, right? Our whole grains, breads, pastas, and cereals made with whole grain, starchy vegetables, beans, peas, and lentils. These are all of our starches. And I want to talk about whole grains for just a moment. A whole grain is not just wheat. There's, yes, whole wheat, but there's also barley, there's quinoa, corn, wild rice, and long grain brown rice. The unique thing about whole grains is that it uses the entire kernel of that plant, the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. When we look at white flour that's really fluffy and very soft and smooth, that's only using the endosperm, that inside of the grain. So we're really missing those other nutritious parts, the outer hull and the germ, that bring nutrition to your plate. So that's why we prioritize whole grains. And I love to talk too about something called intact whole grains. Yes, we can buy whole grain bread, whole grain pasta, and whole grain cereals. Those are our best choices in those sections. We can also use intact whole grains. When was the last time you cooked with straight barley or boiled quinoa and paired it with some beans, right? These are single ingredient, high quality carbohydrates that are going to be very unprocessed. So explore those options, see what you might be comfortable trying and working into your meal plan. Another source of carbohydrates is sugars. We have naturally occurring sugars, but we also have added sugars. Our natural sugars are going to be found in all fruits and fruit juices. Other naturally occurring sugars are the lactose found in milk. And then we have our added sugars, where we have the refined sugar, honey, molasses, agave nectar, even maple syrup. Um, Added sugar is added sugar, whether it's naturally derived like honey or it's a refined sugar. When it's added to a product, we still call it added sugar. We want to aim for about 6 to 9 teaspoons a day, or about 24 to 36 grams of sugar. The good thing now is the food label discerns how many grams are from added sugars, so you can check your food products right on the label. And it's good to note that 1 teaspoon of sugar is equivalent to 4 grams on the food label. We also have fibers in this carbohydrate section, which are non-digestible parts of the plant. All of our plant foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, legumes, lentils, where our body's not necessarily digesting them, but they are definitely getting major benefits from these fibers. Fiber is a crucial part of a heart-healthy diet. We want to aim for at least 25 grams, even up to 38 grams a day for men. There are two kinds of fiber, soluble and insoluble fibers. Now, the food label will not list oftentimes the difference between soluble and insoluble fibers, but we'll go over today which foods fall in which categories. But first, let's talk about the benefits of both. When we get a variety of fibers so that we have both soluble and insoluble, it really treats our overall system a bit better. The benefits of soluble fiber include delaying that blood sugar rise after we eat carbohydrates. So if we eat carbohydrates with absolutely no fiber, that blood sugar might spike and go higher than what's necessary. But if we have the same amount of grams of carbohydrate with fiber containing foods or from a fiber containing food, that's going to slow the rise of that blood sugar. It's going to be a little easier on your pancreas and your system in general. Soluble fiber also binds to cholesterol and bile, which helps with those HDL or good cholesterol levels. And then 5 to 10 grams a day of soluble fiber is shown to lower your LDL by about 5 to 11 points. So small shifts in your food choices for the day can directly manage your LDL and your lipid profile. Insoluble fibers are a bit different. They kind of stay in the gut. They're not as digested as those soluble fibers. And the benefits are in keeping the gut moving, and they assist in the formation of our stool and what's called fecal bulk. So we want to keep that gut system or gastrointestinal tract really healthy. The fiber in foods can also help us feel full. It can help with our gut health, and it can also help maintain a healthy weight. Going over our soluble and insoluble fiber sources can help you add it throughout your day. You want to aim for at least 5 to 10 grams of soluble fiber. You'll find this in oats and barley, psyllium, which is found in different laxative products and fiber supplements. You can also find soluble fiber in nuts and seeds, legumes and lentils, and then our specific fruits and vegetables that are high in soluble fiber are apples, pears and plums, figs, our citrus fruits and oranges, and our berries. And it's even better if you can eat the skin. We have our potatoes with skin, Brussels sprouts, corn, and zucchini are all high in soluble fiber from that vegetable category. Your insoluble fibers are going to be more of your whole wheat products, wheat bran, and your whole grains, your brown rice, wild rice, especially when it's long grain, and your seeds, as well as other fruits and vegetables. Most foods are going to come with a balance of both soluble and insoluble fiber. And since the label does not discern how many grams are in which food, the biggest take-home message here is to get a variety of fiber-containing foods and hit at least 25 grams per day. You're going to be doing your body and heart and your gut a favor by making this a habit. So your fiber goals, to reiterate, 25 to 30 grams per day. You can get this by aiming to eat 2 to 3 cups of vegetables, 1 to 2 cups of fruits, 3 servings of whole grains, and 1 to 2 cups of legumes or beans each week. If this looks like something that is a big jump for you, make sure you increase that intake slowly and drink adequate fluids because fiber binds liquid, right? So if we increase our fiber way too fast, you might find that you're struggling with some gut impacts or some constipation. So increase your intake slowly and drink plenty of water while you do so. Looking at carbohydrates in general, a lot of these choices, when we talk nutrient-dense carb choices, are going to be high in fiber, but we're going to kind of frame it just in the way of carbohydrates right now and energizing our body, our brain, and keeping that blood sugar balanced throughout the day. So carbohydrates that are more refined or maybe low in fiber are listed under this green column. Under the blue column, we have our more nutrient dense or high fiber options. So these are just showing you ways that you can make small swaps in your diet to increase the carb quality when you're balancing your plate. So if you're used to mashed potatoes, you could try a baked potato with the skin or roasted diced sweet potatoes. If you're used to a crispy rice cereal, you could swap for oatmeal with berries, or bonus, even throw in a little bit of flaxseed for a little more fiber. If you're used to regular soda, right, that's a carbohydrate with no nutrient quality or and lots of added sugar. You can switch for water, iced tea, or some cucumber lime water, anything that sounds great. Put it over ice, but you're going to be improving that choice right there. You can swap out your white bread for a whole grain bread or even a sprouted whole grain bread. You can change your white rice for brown or wild rice, or even go kind of outside the box and try quinoa, farro, or barley. You can change your corn chips for whole grain pretzels or whole wheat crackers. And then doing jam instead of jam or syrup, trying a warmed berries with a little bit of honey. Instead of fruit juice, you can aim for a whole fruit with a cup of water. Now, these are just a few examples on improving that carbohydrate quality to increase the fiber, slow the blood sugar rise, and get your body more nutrition. Moving on to proteins. Quality and fresh proteins are better choices for our health. We have both plant sources and animal sources of proteins that can fuel our body and be heart healthy. We want to aim for about 15 to 25% of our total calories from protein. Protein is crucial in the body, and it's for much more than muscle building. Most of us know that if you're working out in the gym, you want to try to prioritize protein. It does provide those building materials for the growth and repair of body tissues. but it also plays some regulatory roles and also aids with our hormones and pH balance, our immune system function, enzymes, transportation. It works with our fluid balance, and it also kind of has a role with energy production. So protein goes way beyond just the muscle, and it also helps us kind of feel full when we pair it with those carbohydrates. So it really has a meal balancing and a body balancing impact when it's part of a balanced meal. Let's review protein sources as it applies to heart health. We've got three columns here: eat rarely, eat less often, and eat more often. In the eat rarely column, you'll find fatty meats like ribs, high-fat ground meats, corned beef, fried meats and seafood, cold cuts like salami, bologna, ham, turkey, and processed meats like pepperoni, bacon, sausage, hot dogs, and brats. Now, we want to eat these rarely because a lot of these choices are high in sodium, high in saturated fat, and potentially high in trans fat, which we want to aim for zero when it comes to trans fat and cardiovascular health. Protein choices we want to eat less often, so keep your eye on them. We know we don't want to eat these daily, but they can be worked into a heart healthy diet. We've got egg yolks, which most research shows anywhere from 4 to 7 whole eggs per week is going to be a-okay for heart health. If you've been told by your provider otherwise, definitely follow that recommendation. But for the most part, in the general population, we're looking at 4 to 7 egg yolks or whole eggs per week. We also have leaner meats like flank steak, ground round, top sirloin, venison, and bison. These are protein choices that we want to eat less often or eat in moderation. Eat more often. So these are protein choices that we're going to be having daily. Lean meats like chicken, fish, and turkey, baked, grilled, or roasted or sauteed chicken and fish. So not deep fried, and ideally removing the skin of any poultry that you're eating. We also have, and we want to really prioritize our plant-based proteins: beans, lentils, tofu, nuts and nuts butters, seeds, and whole grains, and even some of our vegetables. These plant-based protein sources can be filling, they can be delicious, and when we add them to what we're already eating in small amounts, they really can be approachable. We also have egg whites as a protein source that we can use on a daily basis. So looking at our plant-based versus our animal-based proteins, there's some pros and cons for each. So our plant-based proteins, like our soy products, our whole soy foods, beans, lentils and peas, nuts and seeds, our whole grains, and some vegetables. Most of these foods are going to be higher in fiber. They're going to have low or no saturated fat. They're going to be cholesterol free. There is less protein per ounce, but they do still have protein. And it's best to combine these sources throughout the day. So if you are prioritizing plant-based proteins, you want to aim for a variety, because the proteins that the beans have is not going to be the same proteins as what the whole grains have, but when they're paired together, it gives our body what it needs. And these foods are also high in vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. The animal proteins, on the flip side, meat, poultry, fish, seafood, dairy, and eggs. These proteins have better bioavailability. This means that the proteins are utilized at a more efficient rate, and there's higher protein content per ounce. It's usually a good source of B vitamins and iron, so a little bit of a different nutrient profile compared to those plant-based proteins, but they do come with more saturated fat and cholesterol. And all of these foods have no fiber. So it's important when we are meal planning to recognize, okay, fish sounds good tonight, but I'm going to realize there's no fiber in this. So I'm going to make sure my two side dishes are high fiber choices. So it's not about assigning you always have to do this and you always have to do that. It's about understanding our food choices and how we can pair and manipulate our plates with mostly high quality foods to help your heart health over time. So let's go over some heart smart application tips, because knowledge is one thing, doing it is another. So some tips to improve carbohydrate quality is to prioritize single ingredient carbohydrates: beans, red skin potatoes, berries, right? These are very easy, simple foods that are one ingredient, but they're bringing you a high fiber carbohydrate source. You can also plan to stash quick carbs for easy meals. Some of my favorites are the canned salt-free beans. You can give them a really good rinse and they're ready to use. You can microwave a sweet potato and you can keep whole fruits on the side that are more grab and go. And one of my favorite tips for the kitchen is that you can cook and freeze whole grains like quinoa, long grain brown rice, farro, barley, even lentils, which is a legume. But you can cook these in bulk and then let them cool, put them in 2-cup freezer baggies, label them, and stack them flat in your freezer. Then you don't have to boil water every single time you want to do a whole grain side dish. You can flavor it after the fact. One of my favorites is quinoa mixed with black beans, throw in a scoop of salsa and a sprinkle of cumin and chili powder. That's a great Southwest take on a whole grain side dish, and if that quinoa was frozen and ready to go, I can have that done in no time. You can also aim to improve your protein quality. So you can try a sheet pan dinner with seafood and vegetables. This is where you spread your seafood and your veggies, just like the salmon and asparagus, on one pan and bake it at one temperature until they're both done. You can serve this over brown rice. Another way to improve protein quality is to try one meatless meal per week, whether it's lentils or maybe it's a stir fry with brown rice and cashews, or edamame is a whole soy food. But aiming for one meatless meal per week can really improve your protein quality. And then you can also add beans or lentils to your lean ground meats. You're almost cutting the animal protein with the plant protein. That's going to improve your protein quality. So one of my favorites is to add lentils to my taco meats. So I buy a lean ground turkey or lean ground beef, but then add in a cup or a cup and a half of cooked lentils, right, with the tomato sauce, the cumin, the chili powder, and kind of mix that all up. You can barely tell the lentils are there, but you've added nutrition, you've stretched your portions with one quick, easy step. So think through the nutrient-dense choices we reviewed for carbohydrates and proteins and how you can incorporate them into your meal plan, ideally starting next week. If you have any questions or want to schedule an individual consult with our registered dietitian here at the Cardiac Clinic, you can give us a call for scheduling at 616-885-5000. We hope you found this very helpful, and remember, this is part 1 of a 6-part series on eating smart for your heart.